Okay, this is the February 6th, 2019 meeting of the Laconia Conservation Commission. I'm Dean Anson.
Deb Williams?
Marnie Schultz.
Wesley Bates.
Evan Rathburn, staff technician.
Okay, so we're gonna, anybody have any comments on the minutes of the December 12th, 2018 meeting?
I have some corrections.
Okay,
Under new business and master plan, the fourth sentence down, towards the end, you get kind of this specific explanation is that the from setback of the RR2 district, I think it should be, specific explanation is that from the. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay,
If you could just,
so flip that.
if you have any corrections, just mark them down and then hand those back to me and I'll apply them to my copy downstairs.
Okay.
okay. Anybody have anything,
District.
anything else? Sorry.
I mean, that whole sentence is kind of, specific explanation is that from the setback of the RR2 district would become a buffer. It would become a buffer? Okay. District, it would become a buffer which would prevent clear cutting of roadside trees and vegetation. Okay. Then, almost at the end of that paragraph, it says, R. Christopher thinks that the commission should come to a consensus about how they feel, but you mixed up the letters and how. So, that's what I have.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay, anybody have anything else?
I'll make a
I'm all
motion.
set.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes with the corrections for 12/12/2018.
Okay, anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, any additional comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good, thank you. Okay,
All we did was accept last month's minutes.
minutes.
Excellent, and I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, and before we go any further, Mike, have you met Wes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Almost definitely.
Okay.
A few meetings.
All right, good. Okay, so Wes is now a full member.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering your time.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna be better having you. Get some fresh ideas.
It's a lot of pressure, Dean.
You can handle it.
Oh, you haven't started.
Yeah,
You substitute, you can handle it.
yeah, it's really, this is nothing. Okay, the next item is, the city has completed the purchase of the parcel on Pickerel Pond. It's on Pickerel Pond Road, and a conservation easement has been placed on that, and we now own it, which is about 15 and a half acres, and I think once the spring comes, we can go and look at the property and see
Yeah.
what has to be
Yeah,
done.
that's what I figured.
see what has to be done so that, that we need to have a parking area there in the front, right off Pickle Pond Road, and see what, if there's any other, the seller was supposed to pick up any debris that was on the property before they turned it over to us, and so, once the snow is gone, we'll be able to.
We'll have to
Oh, and that's a beautiful little project there. That's something you can go in, you can say, oh, look, we'll do this. You know, if we need a dump truck, gee, I know a guy with a dump truck, you know, we
Oh,
don't
you
have to weigh
good.
on
Is it-
everything on the city.
Yeah, and we need
Have
a
to
red dump
inspect
truck, by
that.
the
We
way.
got a red dump truck and
Oh.
we got a blue tractor, so.
Oh,
We'll have to
red,
inspect that little
What?
house, that little
yeah, that little building.
shed and see what kind of shape that's in, if,
Dean, for doing these activities, I've actually been looking at, federal websites for grants. And there's one, I think it's a federal trails project,
Nice.
Okay,
and I think it goes live in April. I've contacted
Ooh.
our state's administrator for that.
good.
She sent me information on how to get the application started, things to research. I've also talked to, Meredith's planning director. He's going to send me a since they acquired $80,000 last year for their trails projects. Him and the assistant planner over there, or a technician,
Right.
are going to send me their submission for the project, so I can go over that and see how we can tweak that for our city. We need to have something down pat for what we're gonna do in that property first, is
Yep.
what the administrator said. They won't look kindly on, or they won't
right,
be very receptive if you just say, well, we wanna do something in this area, we need to have something specific we wanna do, set down. So I'm gonna, when I get the copy from them, I'm gonna try and craft a rough draft of it.
what's the timeline on the grant?
It does not start until April, so I've got.
It has to be submitted by April?
No, it does not, the information and documents are not up until April. So they don't show up on the federal website.
So it's not
until
open until April?
It's not open until April.
Okay.
So I've got,
And then when is the paperwork due?
I'd have to look at it again. I don't think
Okay.
they've come up with a date yet since it's not live.
Or is it rolling, or,
I think it might be, I'd have to double check. There was a lot of information on that website,
nice,
and I'm still going over it, so
that would be great.
hopefully I can, get something in, we can get some money to that to help fund, improvements to the property this summer, if we decide to do it then, so.
Oh, yes.
I think, you know, off the top of my head, there's some things that we need to do. We need to make sure that the trail is cleared, make sure we designate where the trail is so people don't get lost. We need to go and look at those buildings and see if they're safe. And who in the city would be responsible for designating a building as being safe or unsafe?
Are you talking structurally?
Mm-hmm,
That would be the building inspector.
Sure.
Building and fire inspector.
okay,
So I can talk to Joe and
Okay.
Charlie and see which one they think would be the best. I think since this isn't more like fire extinguishers, sprinklers, things like that, fire safety, this is probably more Joe for structural integrity. So,
We'll have to have a discussion about what to even keep that shed for, or
Yeah, I was gonna ask what
Only-
would the plans be? if
One
it was
last
gonna-
kegger and light the sucker on fire.
that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe, you know, when you have that nice flat space, you can put some canoe racks and stuff like that.
maybe we could put the canoe racks in the shed,
Uh,
no? Okay, but, Okay.
Last I remember that 2 years ago, that was, fairly, I think it's done its duty.
okay,
so I'll keep everyone updated on how I'm going with the grant.
So is it, now the city owns it, if someone were inclined to go snowshoeing out there,
right.
The
is
city-
that okay?
The city owns it,
Yeah.
is now city public, owned by the city of Laconia.
All right.
Yeah.
Do they still run the snowmobile trail across it?
I don't think I think we wanted to keep that
Yes, I
in
don't,
place.
Yeah.
So,
and
do you have a
for
snowmobile?
access. Technically, yes, but
I don't think there was anything in the.
I'm just curious
deed
about what
or
is.
The purchase and sales agreement, that said that was prohibited.
Yeah, I just know that there used to be, traditionally, used to be trail across that.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't think we were
Seaway
looking to
City.
change that.
But then some of it is abbreviated because Windsong in Meredith used to be open, and I think the trail went up through that. So now that there's, it's all built up, it doesn't go that way so much anymore. So you see more neighborhood usage moving south or something like that.
I don't think the city would have any issues with that going on as long as they don't cause any damage to the property.
No.
So it's interesting. I'll go cross-country skiing out there. It's
The
a
other
beautiful
thing I would,
spot.
the other thing I would ask a question about is, if I remember correctly, it's pretty dicey footing to get to the lake. Like, I feel like there were some boards there.
There were
Oh.
boards.
Would it be feasible to put just more boards? Like,
It's nice. That's another,
it's not a dock, I'm not saying a dock,
I
but
know.
I'm just saying like a walkway,
Right, because the pond is very shallow there and, you know,
because it's swampy right there.
I don't,
we may be
So you know
able-
how Gunstock has their,
yeah,
Walk.
my high school, we took care of a property down in, Chester.
Right.
That had those, it was a park, actually. I don't, yeah, I think we could do that.
Talking about like a bog boardwalk almost.
yeah, yeah.
I'd have to check with,
we need Eagle Scout, that's what we need.
I was gonna say that. I had a friend who was an Eagle Scout, and that was one of his projects. Is he?
I'll check with DES to see if we need anything from them to do it.
Right.
It's not in the wetland, like in the water,
It
but
would
it's still
be,
in.
so, and you wanted,
it would be,
Yeah, it's still
Yeah.
in that
and
vicinity.
one last thought on that, and of course, there's all impacted near the water and everything like that, is going into it, you wanna make it as ADA accessible as possible.
Right.
And there is funding in those same sort of things that I looked at too, and there's federal grants, but they want everything ADA, so it makes.
and how much access do we wanna grant to the pond?
It
We'll
makes
have-
it
we'll have to have
comfortable
it-
to go down, you gotta think about it,
Yeah,
you
we'll
know,
have to have a
certainly,
discussion,
certainly someone in a motorized wheelchair should be able to get down to the area.
right,
You know, that's not unreasonable, that's all just crushed stone and
right.
on the way to make it even.
I don't think we need to, we probably don't have to go on a straight line to get down there. We own that,
But it's just for what exists already.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
What exists without impacting
Right.
anything else and let develop what develops.
I think the state would look favorably upon that because it's the boards, because it's the least impact
right,
possible.
But you can't put a wheelchair across the boards. All I'm saying, 'cause then I don't know, and
No,
I'm
that's-
saying this, and I don't have a
Yeah,
vision
I
in my head
understand what you're
of
saying.
exactly where those were, so I'm just,
yeah.
I'm thinking more of regular foot traffic at this point.
Yeah.
If, when it gets to ADA, we can,
yeah, but I mean, on the way down there, you know, as you upgrade that access in, you're not in for a, 18-wheeler, but certainly you would wanna be able to bicycle down it, you'd wanna be able to take your cart down it.
Get a motorized wheelchair.
Yeah.
Okay, all
Only-
right, so
only
if
fair.
you can keep us apprised of what's going on with that grant application process, that would be good, and, maybe between now and then, we can go up there and see what's going on, see what it's like.
Is there any release for the paper about it? Is it undercover? We're not
haven't.
making anybody crazy, we're just,
No, we
Going
haven't,
it's
along
now,
would be
it's now
nice.
fully in the public's eye. We don't need to keep it under wraps anymore.
right, but
Yeah.
can we?
But I don't think, are we ready to announce it yet? I would, that we,
those are kind of the questions I'm
Yeah.
asking.
yeah,
Or are you saying, do you wanna wait until we've done the improvements to it and
I
then-
would say at least until we've looked in the spring at it, don't you think?
Or like assess the safety of the
Right.
buildings, cause I mean,
Yeah.
if we own the property,
I
we're liable
mean-
now for
Yeah.
You
what
just don't
happens on
know,
it.
you know, how many groups of kids have they arrested up at Lock Hill lately?
Right, see, back in the day, the old guy had rock salt in the shotgun and we knew better. Right? I can't believe how many people get,
Don't get rock salted?
I know, right? We learned early.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
so,
you know, then it's like an acceptable risk. Like you're gonna do it, you might get shot with rock salt. That's just
The guy
the cost
knows
of
you're
doing
not gonna
business.
call the police and say, I just got shot with rock salt, trespassing.
so let's do this. In terms of doing some kind of a public release in the newspaper, let's wait until we do this grant application, then we can say we've applied for a grant to do
Right.
these things on this newly purchased piece of property. I think that, I think that makes sense, because then it's like, it's not just a parcel.
So we haven't been down there to look at it in 2 years.
Right.
I mean, things may have changed. We may not want public access to some areas right away, like if that building's falling down.
And, it might be, so, maybe we should have the building inspector go sooner, so that if the building is not safe and we own it now, he can put a no trespassing sign on it, or,
I could actually go out and do that right now.
okay.
That's a good idea.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good
Should
idea
wait.
to secure it anyways, to give you,
Yeah, I would hang that sign anyway, on the building.
yeah.
Yeah, can't hurt.
Do we have, okay, one of the things I went to over the years here in conservation, they showed us signs and we could get signs made, so Laconia Conservation, property of Laconia Conservation Commission, no trespassing, but at least put stamp on it. And there were some of these they made trail signs and a bunch of other stuff like that.
well, we have medallions that,
Yep, no, this is,
Those ones just say conservation land, doesn't,
this
says
would be something
conserva-
like this.
yeah.
And even if you just got it made, it's not gonna cost $1 million, you know what I mean?
Or even right now, if it just was the city
Right,
of
to
Laconia,
put it up
you
and
know,
say,
no trespassing, city of
property
Laconia.
of
Yeah.
City of Laconia Conservation Commission.
Put something that says or building unsafe.
You don't have to say that.
We could put some yellow tape around it.
Crime
That
scene.
would just incite them to go in.
That's true.
police.
Medallions are more for putting on the boundaries
Trees,
Yeah.
of the
yeah,
land,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
just says City of Laconia
And we can do
Conservation
that
Land,
along that
No.
left side of that trail, so that
Yeah.
motor
no one goes
vehicles
into that
kind of thing,
other property.
but.
Okay, so
Okay.
why don't you go and take a look at it? And if you want somebody to go with you,
I'm off on Friday.
You have an extra set of,
there you go.
what were you gonna do, snowshoes?
Telemark skis? Yeah, sure, I got
Or
extra
snowshoes.
telemark skis.
I do too. If there's snow left, who knows?
But yeah, it's, it's an easy, with the snow loss that we've gotten over the past week, should be fairly
Muddy.
good access with good boots.
I've got a pair of hiking boots.
And
so,
and it's
Hip
not,
boots you might need.
it's not a
Waders.
forever walk, it's just over there.
we've got rubber boots downstairs and planning,
The hardest part will be parking.
Well, the other thing is, when you go,
yeah,
It'll be
take
tough.
pictures,
oh yeah.
please.
Take your truck.
Okay. All right, anything else on Pickerel Pond?
No, I'm glad that happened, that's
Yep.
what I gotta say.
This is we've been working on this for about 5 or 6 years. And we would drop the ball, then the seller would drop the ball,
And then we kicked the ball.
then, yeah, that's right, then we'd try to find the ball.
All right,
And
onward,
then we finally had a ball.
onward.
Okay,
I like it. Keep them on task.
okay, so we've already talked about the proposed stormwater regs, right?
Well, not everyone was here.
Oh, okay,
Just to give you an update, the city looking at again, preparing for MS4, primarily coming in the future. The EPA is slowly creeping its way up to our neck of the woods. MS4 stands for Municipal Stormwater Sewer System. It's a initiative EPA has been taking in years. I helped the town of Derry come into compliance during my internship with them. It's pretty much, it will add regulations onto commercial and residential properties that discharge into our stormwater systems around the city. Making sure they're not putting oil into them that will outlet into the lake, chemicals, salt, or massive amounts of salt. When a company comes in to develop, because they'll be around the stormwater system, drainage system, there'll be new ways to help them treat runoff from their properties, so swales, things like that. Multiple other towns down south have already been brought into compliance by the federal government, and they're currently in Pembroke right now. So the moment I think they're done there, they're going to be up in Concord, since that's the next step. The moment they're done with Concord, we are the next epicenter for that kind of infrastructure. So they'll be heading up our way.
Are they following along the whole drainage system that goes down the?
No, they're
River,
doing
no?
it. They're doing it town by town.
Town by
Who
town.
has the infrastructure? Tilton has some infrastructure because they have the strip and everything, but we're the biggest municipal stormwater infrastructure up in this
But it
area.
all goes into that drainage system that goes.
We're also, like I said, we're also a prime target for MS4 because we outlet into the lakes, which are considered impaired waters of the United States. But they're slowly making their way up, so we'd like to kind of get a head start on that.
Is there any kind of time frame for that?
No, not really. Public Works is watching it go up, watching them move up. It's the public can see where they're going to. They have maps on their website of who's regulated currently at the moment, who falls in the jurisdiction, and it's currently in Pembroke right now. So
So like no idea, not like a year, 2 years,
yeah,
5
we have
years.
no idea. But I met with me, the director, and the assistant planner. All met with Public Works to kind of just go over things the commission and staff, how we'd like to go for it in the future.
And does Wes Anderson have experience doing this?
Yes, he does.
Okay, good.
He's from, previously worked for Manchester's Department of Public Works.
Good, okay,
And he's also part of the Army Corps of he used to be part of the Army Corps of Engineers.
okay.
So Wes definitely has experience with this, so.
Good, that'll help.
He already has, they're already starting to work on GIS, mapping out where all our storm drains are, pipes, where they outfall.
Yeah, because our culverts have all been identified. If you go on the web and you go to, if you look for culverts, they're mapped already. In Laconia, they're mapped.
The states are all mapped too, through their finder system that we saw from I think it was the stream restoration, presentation from last year that was in Meredith. They'd already done they'd done surveys of where all the state's culverts are too. So that's all public knowledge. Everything here is already public knowledge. So
Okay. And is MS4 going to include the culverts?
it might, I'm not sure, I'd have to look at other towns and cities. When I was helping Derry with theirs, Public Works did not have me looking at culverts, they had me only looking at storm drains, and their interconnected systems and outfalls, so.
Okay, all right.
If the culvert's the end point for outflow into the river, or lake, then yes, they'll be looking at those.
Okay,
But otherwise, if it's just a culvert, underneath a road, I don't think they will bother with that.
Okay.
It's not part of the interconnected system.
Okay. All right, anything else on the stormwater regs? Okay, do we have any general business?
Are we skipping?
I'm skipping
Okay.
Pearly Pond because I want to do that in non-public session.
That one, Dean, I don't think we can do that in public session, cause that's already public knowledge.
I mean, a private.
And it's not land acquisition, it's not affecting anybody's reputation.
Okay, I'm gonna object. I'm gonna object because we did this in public session several years ago, and it was a fiasco. Went to the newspapers, we had people,
Was it with the tree?
Well, this is just for the improvements to the property, correct?
Yeah, we're not cutting down the tree.
Marnie, what do you think?
Oh, I think that it's a bulldog. I mean, I just don't think that, nobody's gonna win on that one.
I know, but do you think we should do it in public session or non-public session?
I think we should leave it alone.
Well, we can't do that.
Can't leave it
We've
alone.
already been designated.
Right.
Well, the tree's gonna die.
No, we're
Well,
not
we're-
cutting it down. No.
Talking about
Well, I
the
think-
property.
Well, I mean, the tree
Is it-
is the property.
No.
How about was this here we go again, so if I can't say anything because I don't know where we're going with this.
So,
I-
what do you think, Deb?
I agree that we could start this discussion in non-public.
Will you invite legal repercussions then because of that, because it doesn't really fit any of the criteria?
That's okay. I'll make that decision. I'll be responsible for any other ramifications.
Do you wanna just wait and talk this over with the director first?
Sure.
I already have.
No, but about.
Okay, let's just do it.
I spoke to him, he just said be tactful about it.
There's no being tactful about this. There's no being tactful. Okay, so this deals with the Pearly Pond, which is adjacent to the Pearly Oak on Route 106. And the city council has asked the Conservation Commission to deal with the pond, its appearance, maintenance, because the Pearly family has written a letter to the city council saying that we were not abiding by the conservation easement that was given to the city.
When
They
did
s-
they write that letter?
When did they write it? January.
This
January
back.
or December.
So whatever we did there in the fall, they weren't happy. They didn't think was enough.
Right.
We cleaned up the debris
Right.
that was in the pond.
We cleaned up the debris that was in the pond.
and Some of the bulrushes were cut,
Mhm,
correct?
Right.
Okay.
And vegetation was cut along the pond. And we could do that because the city does not have to, well, it's not a water body that's under the control of the state. So we were allowed to do that cutting. And Parks and Rec cut the vegetation down to about 2 feet. So it's particularly the shrubs that were there.
And that was after the director, that's after Kevin Dunleavy consulted with DES. They were the ones who told him to cut it to that.
Right.
Level.
that length.
So the issue is that the Pearly family has complained to the city council that we were not abiding by our responsibilities. And we weren't maintaining it. There was what used to be grass that was maintained, a lawn area that was maintained. now had some grasses that were several feet high. The shrubs along the road were tall enough so that you couldn't see the pond. There were trees and tree limbs and other debris that had gotten into the pond, and the city council was embarrassed. So they said, we need to do something about it, and they asked the Conservation Commission to take care of it. So our role is to come up with a plan on what to do there, and then implement the plan. Or the plan implementation would be by Parks and Rec. So they were told to put funds in their budget to do that work.
So the council is not concerned about any repercussions if we go back to maintaining that as a grass spot that will attract more people in that area? They're not concerned about the oak tree falling and killing somebody? The branches?
One of the things that they want us to do is to get an arborist to look at the tree and determine what kinds of trimming should be done or pruning so that the life of the tree can be extended. They want us to have the arborist looked at insect infestation, particularly ants, and when the Purley family owned it, they fertilized the tree by putting, I think they would put fertilizer stakes into the water, into the ground so that the roots could, okay. So what the Conservation Commission is supposed to do is put together a plan, and I suggested we have a landscape architect do it. And I called Kelly McAdam at Cooperative Extension, asked who she recommended to do the landscape portion, and she said Kathy Neal, and because she's handling all of the landscaping at the water's edge types of presentations. I talked to our planning director, and I told him that I thought that the way that the Conservation Commission should approach this is we should get a conditional use permit and get the approval from the planning board. I talked to the planning board director, and he agreed, or not director, he's the chairman. He agreed. He thought that that was a good approach, and he was willing to put it on his agenda when we're ready. So one of the things I suggested was that we, when the arborist and the landscape architect are there, to go through the adjacent area and see if we can find any oak trees that could be offspring from the Purley oak. And if we can find those, then we make an attempt to save them. And so I also said that I thought we ought to take a look at the invasive species that are, particularly the bittersweet, that
Yes.
we can't seem to get control of. So that's what the city council has asked us to do, and I think it's a springtime activity. I suggested to the city council that we include the Purley family in everything that we do, so that they can give us their comments and suggestions, so that we can abide by the rules and regulations and have them give us input.
Well, there are other trees around the country. and probably even in New England, since we've been, lived in longer than any other section of the, of the country, that have met with these same kind of incidences of trying to save, preserve, maintain, whatever. Is there any way that we can check with some of those other people? Because I'm trying to think where I saw it, but they had this, it was a big write-up about all the trees that had significant girths and whatever and age, and how they were being, because they're all dying. I mean, after all, we've settled in this country for over 400 years, and that's a long time for a tree, unless you're out in the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
So, certainly I'm trying to, I can't think of anyone in Maine. But I know in Massachusetts they've got.
Oh, there
they've
was
had-
a big walnut out in Maine that was named Walter or something like that. And it was a beloved one. They ended up taking it down and the wood off to the artisans. But yeah, trees live so long. You could put a big ribbon around them and drive a spike into them. I don't think it's going to help them live.
Well, I think the reason I didn't want to do this in public session is because when we discussed doing work on the Pearly Oak in the past, we had a tremendous public outcry.
So maybe they need some education and
Concerning-
reality.
Concerning what?
Well, it was, there was,
Everything, I guess, but.
Yeah.
well, there was some discussion of cutting the tree down because because of its condition. And when the public heard that, we had articles to the editor, we had people who had done paintings in the past. We had a public outcry that
It's very negative.
was extremely negative and was a fiasco.
Back then, was that a city council directive to cut it down?
No.
No.
We had a discussion about it. We had, did we have an arborist come in there?
We had an arborist
Yeah,
come in.
because he was.
And it was
the
like
husband of-
barely said, but it was a matter of safety
that
that
he was-
had just been brought up, and it was like, then it was blown totally out of proportion, because we were just discussing, we were just talking.
Right.
This time, it's a city council directive, and that lands in
That,
the boards
that's,
and lands.
okay, that's fine. That's fine. The city council did direct us to do that. But we're the ones that are being responsible for putting together this plan. So if the public doesn't like the plan, they're not going to the city council.
Well, they can come here to a public meeting
Yeah,
and
that's
vet
right.
it, just like we always do
Right.
for any other of these things. I think that it's, how big is the property, 2 acres? Or is that
maybe,
big?
maybe.
Somewhere in there, over 1, not quite 2. And, traditionally, I've always wondered about it, because they used to skate on it, there used to be access. Truly, I live on a pond, so I cut my stuff so that the geese don't come up. There's a berm to it. That's not old school thinking. A lot of these people like the whole lawn to the edge and the access, but there's some value to no one ever looks at the outflow of that pond. It is a little dam, it is a culvert, So I think it's reasonable to be able to look at it and see what we can do. Public Works mows the lawn there under the tree for what it is. It could use a park bench. You know what I mean? There's no parking, but it could use a park bench to sit and observe the pond or something like that. If it's a public place and there's access, I just wouldn't put the bench under the tree.
But there isn't much room around.
I know,
Okay,
at that. But so I think, looking at having an arborist come in, even if it was the one that we had previously,
I think,
Or
When was
the-
the last time we had one? It wasn't that long ago, was
I
it?
know Kevin, was it
5
Andy
years.
Fast
Andy Fast is
Andy
the county,
Fast.
is the county,
Forest, or
forester.
I think his name was John.
Yeah, his name was John May.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
So, you know, I don't, nothing against the new person, but
No.
it has any value in continuity, or this or that, not to get in an overblown thing about a tree that gets older. We all know what happens as we all get older.
And
Is-
you're not talking about cutting it down this time, you're talking about improving it and trying
Yeah,
to save
what do
the
you,
tree.
yeah.
Or making
Yeah,
it,
we did that before too.
yeah.
Yeah,
I guess I don't really understand what our obligation is necessarily to this piece of land in terms of like what was agreed upon.
Back then, it was written in the 80s is when we.
1988.
Yep, 1988, and deed was written vaguely.
Yeah.
From my understanding going over it, it doesn't give a specific pinpoint, this is what
Okay.
you need to do
No,
on
it
the
says,
property.
it says, you know,
It
we're.
almost sounds like they want more of like a park.
Well,
right.
and they do.
But,
That's right.
But that's the thing is what they might want, how they interpret it might be different from how planning might interpret it, or the commission might interpret it.
Okay, so the point here is the Purley family said, if you're not gonna take care of it, then give it back to us, and we'll take care of it. But that makes it more complicated. It makes it more complicated because we do not have to do a conditional use permit. They will. And the things that we could do, they may not be able to do.
Would they be interested in giving a donation for, you know, to the city to be able to maintain this? Is there some sort of funding that they would like to do if they want to direct what it is that's going to be done?
I think that the answer to that is unknown, but I think that, you know, once we get a plan and we know what the cost of that plan is, then we have to figure out how to finance the plan.
Sure.
Is the city paying for the landscape architecture?
I think the landscape architect, since she's with Cooperative Extension, I don't think that there would be a charge, but I will ask that question.
Along with the,
Scott did say there would be a line item or a budget put in for parks and recs. to do
Right,
this,
but I don't know if that was for development of the plan or for
maintaining the
maintenance.
property. Yes, okay.
So it's,
I mean, it just seems to me, I don't have any sentimental attachment to this piece of property, obviously. I love looking at it. I think it looks great how it was. I have never once seen somebody using the piece of property. So,
See,
you know,
that's the thing is-
it's like, why are we allocating resources to this piece of property where we have other pieces that we could put our money in and would be, you know, much more effective and used?
So
think
as
that's-
a kid, it was a neighborhood skating pond.
Yeah.
Whether it was because there are more kids that lived right around there and it,
there are
Made
still
access.
kids, I think, that go down there.
to throw rocks through the ice.
Right,
So,
I
you
don't-
know, it can
Which
be
You
a-
is
don't see
fun.
them
and climb on
skating.
the tree.
You don't see
Yeah,
them
you see
skating
'em
there
in the-
anymore,
You see them in the tree.
but, yeah.
So the reason we're doing this, because the city council asked us to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing it. And, you know, there was no intention, absolutely no intention of cutting the tree down. Pruning the tree, not cutting it down. So I just want to make that point so that people don't misunderstand what we're trying to do here. So, the Purley family was concerned that the adjacent vegetation had encroached on the pond, and that there was, erosion into the pond. And when the city council was talking about cutting the vegetation along the road, I said, you know, there's gonna be erosion. There's gonna be erosion from the road, because we put sand on it, we put salt, we put all this other stuff.
I do have a report from Scott, in the past there was, I think it was called a rill.
A what?
A rill going down to the pond, water runoff cut right down to
Oh,
cut a chunk out of the edge of the road,
Right.
or the edge of the property there.
I almost thought the pond was above the road grade there,
No,
close.
it would, otherwise it'd be overflowing onto the road,
Well,
but,
it has a culvert on.
Yeah, that's
next to
true.
the road.
No, you
So-
have to walk down to it.
So I think, so that's what we've been asked to do. So I'll call Kathy Neal, ask her to meet with us. I'll ask her for a recommendation on an arborist, and we'll probably get Andy Fast. Andy's looked at it before. I think he's a conservative, reasonable guy.
Makes it easier for me to communicate with him too, because I've communicated with him multiple times in the past.
Yep, no, he's a nice guy.
So then we'll have to put together a plan, and once we get a plan put together, then we should sit down with the city council, tell them what we're thinking about doing and how much it's gonna cost. And then once they say, okay, then we sit down with the Purley family and the city council and run it by those people. And
Sounds like a reasonable plan to me.
okay,
There isn't much else to do.
No, that sounds like the path.
okay. Does anybody have anything else
On that
Ideas?
or a new thing?
on the Purley? Let's do the Purley.
No, let's go that way.
Okay. Okay. All right, any other old business? That's not actually old business, it's new business, but anyway.
I just have a map I will pass around. This has to do with the lake hosting from last summer at O-Pee-Chee. It actually breaks down where boats were coming from to that boat launch and where they possibly may be going to. We had 482 total inspections. So-
482.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And this map just gives you an idea. The larger the circle, the more population of boats that came from that area,
All right.
Ooh,
so.
so this is on O-Pee-Chee,
Yes. Where
just
they're-
for O-Pee-Chee.
Right, just for,
And do you know who was doing the fish and game?
no. No, that was somebody that worked for the Winnisquam Association, as far as I know.
Yeah, Winnisquam Association, not the Winnisquam Watershed Network.
Right.
Right.
And this is just somebody stationed at the boat launch taking down information.
Yeah, so we
checking for
have the
invasive
last
species.
2 or 3 years, I mean, I've done it with high school students in a different program for New Hampshire Lakes, but then the last 2 years, or 3 years? 2 years.
2.
We've actually got a grant from New Hampshire Lakes and put money in kind and hired somebody to be down there on the weekends.
Yep.
And just talking to the boaters, making sure they know about, because we have milfoil in that lake.
Yeah.
Inspecting
Water-
boats
water
if they let
chestnuts.
us.
Yeah, I worked for, in the Adirondacks, I worked for like a watershed stewardship program that did exactly that, so, yeah.
It's a great program.
Yep.
It's needed, and you can see a difference every year between the boaters, because they are starting to
General
understand.
awareness, yeah.
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 Cool.
And as of now, our state doesn't charge. There are states, I think Maine, maybe even Vermont. So like you get a decal if your boat is clean. If you're inspected and it's clean, they'll give you a decal, but you pay for it. I think $5 something. So
Yeah, we didn't do anything like that, but if, you found an invasive species, we would, require you to go wash your boat and clean it. And, obviously,
Did
some
they-
people wouldn't follow it, but then, you call in the,
Would they have, boat wash available in that area?
yeah, Yep, there were some places.
On the ramps?
Not on the ramps. You'd have to take your boat somewhere else.
Isn't somebody building a boat wash over by,
Well, in Lakeport.
Yeah,
as
in
part of-
Lakeport.
Right, she would, but that's, I
Is
don't,
that
I don't
bizarre?
believe that's like for a public, before you launch publicly, I think that might be for their boats or
Yeah,
boats
it's
coming
probably
in.
for what they do.
Yeah, it was with, what's her name that's building that?
Blizzard.
Blizzard?
Erica Lazard.
I mean, there's talk, we did a lot of, part of our inspections last year, that we took a survey, had them answer a survey question of if there was a boat wash available, would they use it? And most people were, positive about that. Because we don't have the teeth to say, oh, I just found this on your boat, you can't launch. I mean, we could say, we strongly suggest you take your boat to the car wash
Right.
and do it, but
Let me find the report that we generated for one of the years I was there. I think you'd probably find it interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I just know that, like in New York, I don't know. I have no idea what it is in New Hampshire, but it was against state regulations to transport invasive species.
it is
It is.
So
here.
therefore, if you found it, you're like, hey, you can't launch your boat because, I found this water chestnut stuck to the fabric of, the bumper on your thing. So
Yeah, I mean, we have that law about transporting,
yeah,
but it hasn't given us the teeth. I mean, I suppose we could call,
DES?
or,
yeah. I mean, I
I
guess
mean,
that
we
wasn't
take all
like
the information down,
yeah,
like their license number and everything, so,
right.
they could be fined later.
Yeah, we weren't writing tickets or
Right.
anything, but we would just get other people involved.
Right.
So
But when you found an invasive species, you took it off, or you asked them to take it off?
No, we would take it off,
Okay. And
And-
then you would, what did you do with it?
send it down to DES just to verify that it was what we thought it was. And the couple times that I have found water chestnuts, it's always on the boat bed or the trailer bed.
yeah, yeah.
And so the boater's gone. So unless they're coming in while we're there, like if our shift's over and we're leaving, I have left notes on people's windshields before saying, oh, by the way, I found a water chestnut on your trailer. But
Okay, so this coming summer, is a Lake Host program going to be funded again by?
I'm assuming, I have not heard from them yet. Typically I hear like sometime this month.
Okay,
Because then they'll have the grants that will come out and be due, I think they're due the end of March or April. So,
okay. Okay,
this past summer it got a little more involved because they started to have us enter all the information online. So you have to make sure that you can hire somebody that's gonna take the time to do that. It is tedious, I'll tell you.
okay, are you gonna coordinate it again?
As of right now, sure, I'll say sure. Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
Yeah,
That sounds like
understatement.
not good news. Anyway. Okay,
But yeah, I'd be interested in getting involved in that, definitely. So let me know. Keep me
That'd be great.
posted.
That would be great. I ended up, last summer, I hired one of my high school students that had graduated.
Oh, nice.
So, and it was perfect. It was perfect for her. It was perfect for us because she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And she was reliable. That's the hardest part, is to find somebody that's reliable.
Right.
I think the other part is there have been incidents of people bothering, quote unquote, bothering the
Oh, yeah.
lake host.
It's a tough spot. It's right where they're working on the electrical substation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a
It's
lot
a
of
lot
foot
of traffic.
A lot of foot traffic
Yeah.
through there. There have at times been homeless people that have been living in the bushes over there, and it's been scary for a few people, but, and then the other hard part is that when we get a grant from New Hampshire Lakes, we have to do the in-kind hours with it. So, some of us have spent time down there in our lawn chairs. It's not a bad,
Getting some sun.
I know, it's not bad. But, anyway,
I think the other thing is there's now a kiosk down there.
right,
So we can put information on the
Yep.
kiosk?
Yep.
Okay.
it'll be interesting to see how long Eversource is down there working. That might be a glitch for the beginning of the year.
Well, don't they have a sign now that says that the parking lot is closed?
Yeah, yeah. So, and have you heard anything about a finish date? Yeah,
See, the ramp is actually owned by Eversource,
Okay.
not by the city. Eversource, until Deb told them that they owned it, they didn't know that they owned it.
nobody knew who owned it.
Interesting.
So it's a combination of who owns it and then who's gonna maintain it, because there's some maintenance work that's required.
But the good thing is, because they're doing so much work down there, and they have the big trucks and everything, they're gonna have to add stone this year.
To the lot.
Right, right. Because it's been pretty neglected the last few years, so that will be good. They're down there fishing. They've been fishing down there the
Oh, I
last
know, I
few
saw it, yeah.
days.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know.
It was cold. Guys like up to his
They-
chest. And
Yeah,
water.
Monday and Tuesday they were out there fly fishing, and that's a little dicey because isn't it just rivers after January 1st? It's not lakes.
No,
Right?
no, it's,
No.
What do you
it's,
mean?
It's
For
from
fly fishing?
from January 1st till April 1st.
I think it's like that.
It's either ice fishing or rivers. So they were right off of the ramp. I mean, they were.
Yeah,
It was a
they
little
were in
sketchy
water.
there. They were a little close to being in the lake.
50 feet over around the corner, you're on the river.
Right. So they were out doing that, and now today they're out there ice fishing. So
you know? Okay, anything else?
that's it.
Okay, good, thank you. Could you contact Rich Tilton and ask him for a date that it would be convenient for him to come and give us an update on the milfoil?
That is actually a very good segue into something else I want to tell you.
Okay, so, Rich Tilton is, we have a subcommittee of the commission, and he's in charge of milfoil and Paugus Bay. So he's been doing work, organizing, he set up a 503C B or 503B.
C3.
C3. So, and he's getting contributions together to help pay for, to offset the cost of milfoil control in Paugus Bay.
We got our grant from the state.
Okay,
This year, instead of only $10,000, we got $14,000.
Good.
I know it's not a big jump, but
It's a
what was
jump.
last year.
Every little-
I've sent the city council the papers for that for Scott to sign the acceptance. And for that, and a staff report to city council. So that is now on their next two agendas for them to, read the resolution and then vote to let Scott sign and accept the grant funds.
so the grant is for 14,000?
Yep, 14,000, I think 600 something. It's 4,000 more than what we had last year.
And is that specifically for Paugus, or is it for any water body in the city?
I'd have to double check, I think it might just be for Paugus.
It's just for Paugus, and the Winnisquam Watershed Network has filed for Winnisquam.
Okay.
So whatever money, I don't know. I wasn't at the last board meeting, so I don't know what they got. But I'm sure they got a number, so, okay. All right, good. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
On that or new business? Just give
Any
me
oth-
one
any
at the
other-
end. Just give me one at the end.
Okay, you're on.
All right. So since we haven't been, we haven't met in a little bit here, this is something that came across my zone. And, this is a survey they're doing out of Concord from New Hampshire DES, and this is New Hampshire Stone Wall Mapper,
Oh, right, I saw that.
right? And so it's a pretty easy one to get on, you know, kids interested in anything like that. This is a public, they're looking for public data, what you know is in your backyard. So you can go, it'll give you the whole, when you go to it, it gives you a map, you know where you are, and you can lay in where your stone walls are, or where you know they are, and they're trying to map more of them. So, you know, it's not about going out and running around everywhere, it's where you know. And so I just want to say that's one of the great things about land use regulation. One of the first things they speak of is the integrity of the stone wall.
Because it's against the law to remove stones
Right.
from stone walls.
And stuff like that, and it's so much a base of what makes New Hampshire, and
Makes New England, New England.
absolutely. And so anything to support on that, I say is A-OK. That's
Okay,
all I had.
good. Thanks. Okay, any other new business? Okay, so, let's go into non-public session then.
Ian, do you wanna seal these minutes?
Let's make that decision after we do it. Okay.